Welcome to the third episode of the Science of Black Fatherhood series from the Droppin podcast. You know, the last few days when I was sitting here thinking about doing another show, I was thinking about a topic and what I wanted to talk about, because if you listen to the previous shows, I had one entitled When It's Too Late to Care and the Kids Will Be All Right. I touched on the fact that I did not know my biological father. And then I touched on the fact that as a father myself, dealing with my children going through the pandemic and not being able to socialize and not being able to get out like they normally would in their teenage years, and watching them kind of go through a stage of depression and watching them go through the woes of not being able to be outside. It all tied into, as a father, me sitting back, me watching how they interact and how they handle their business and how they just go about day to day when they cannot be normal. And for myself, I tried a lot of things that I thought was the right thing. I did some things that were great. I did some things that weren't as effective as a father. But I tried them. And it got me to thinking about, I'm always trying to be a better version of myself. I always want to be a better father. As I think back on my childhood, some of my friends who had fathers who were battling addictions, had fathers who were battling alcoholism, right? But they were still their fathers. They still came and scooped them. They still got Christmas for them. They still did fatherly things, but they just weren't great fathers. And I mean, like, setting a great example, right? And then some of my friends didn't have a father at all. I myself didn't have a father at all. And as I think back about, my childhood, I think about, is it better to have no father at all? Or is it better to have a bad father? That's the topic. That's the question for today's show. Is it better to have no father at all? Or is it better to have a bad father? I'll go through several scenarios where some may think it's better to have a bad father, and some may say, hey, it was better to have no father at all. I'll say this. As a person who did not know my father, there are certain things that I went through in my life. And I'll tell you, I did not realize them until I got older. I said in the previous episode where I went through how I found out that my father wasn't my father, right? Because that was a guy that I knew. That was a guy that was around, but he just wasn't my father. And he wasn't a great father either, by the way. However, as I think back, like I said, he was battling his own addictions. He was battling his own demons. But as I think back, as a young teenager, going through the phases of finding out who I was as a young man, not knowing my father did not bother me at all. I never thought about it. It wasn't until I became a grown man that I started to think about all the gems I missed, all those little golden nuggets that I probably would have gotten had my father been there to give them to me. Because there are men who had fathers who were not great role models, who every now and then gave them some good advice. I didn't have a father to give me any advice. So the older I got, when I got in my late 20s, I started to think about, damn, man, if my dad was around, would I have done this way? Would I have done that way? And I probably would not have. Now, I will say, all in all, I turned out great. But I could have been so much better, so much more had my father been around. Often when I'm by myself, I think about, man, all the times she's my wife now, but she was my girlfriend. All those times we had these arguments, and I just did not know what to say or what to do, because I had never really seen a successful relationship. A lot of times I handled arguments just with anger, and I'm the kind of person, though, I recognize my wrongs, I recognize my faults immediately. So I would respond in a way that just wasn't appropriate, and I would know immediately I know better. There was really nobody to call and talk to and get advice from as a grown man, if that makes sense. So most things that I went through as a teen, relationship wise, money wise, socially, everything that I went through, most things that I went through on my own. I figured it out on my own, which means I probably didn't do it right the first time. My mom is a great person. She did all she could do, raising sons without a father present. But as I think back as a grown man now, as I think back about my childhood and the way my childhood turned out, it's like, shit, there were so many things we missed out on. And I mean, I'm talking about conversations, so many conversations I missed out on, so many opportunities where I could have went one way, but I chose to go the other way because I didn't have anybody to tell me don't go that way. That's why, in my opinion, I would have much rather have had a bad father than to have no father at all. Just think about, as you go through life and you screw up in school, you screw up with your girlfriend or your boyfriend if you're a girl, if you're a lady. Hell, going to get your first car, you know what I'm saying? Applying for colleges. Sometimes you need two people's opinions. And some of us only had one opinion to get. We only had the mother to ask because father just wasn't there even to give bad advice. I could have been so much more, and I think I'm great. I think if I look at myself, I think I'm pretty well accomplished. Have everything I could have asked for. I have a family, a beautiful family, successful, in my career. But I could have been so much more. And some may say so much more, like, what? You have a career, you have a beautiful family. What more could you want? The path to get here was so tough, right? The path to get here was the road was so long and winding, and it's just, oh man, I'm thankful to finally be here, but man, I struggle every day with, trying to be the best version of me for the people that depend on me. And it would have been easier if there was a person for me to look at as a role model. But that person wasn't there for me. I would have much rather have had the bad father than to have no father at all. The caveat to that, some may say the bad father sets a poor example. The bad father, kids who have bad fathers are able to pick up on those bad habits. I have friends who had fathers who were drug dealers. Now my friends are drug dealers. I had friends who had fathers who were womanizers, and now they're womanizers. I had friends who had fathers who were alcoholics, and now they're alcoholics. So that friend may say, I would rather have not had a dad at all because my example was horrible. It was a horrible example. And I also, I agree with that because it's their experience, it's their journey. I would have much rather had somebody there. Even a bad person could give you some gems every now and then. And those gems every now and then could be a game changer. The ability to get even one good piece of advice from somebody is better than none. So I would like to know what y'all think. I would like to know, as my loyal listeners, as the people who listen to Droppin' Jewels on a regular basis, And those who want to chime in on this Science of Fatherhood series, I would like to know, would you rather have a bad father or no father at all? Or did you have a bad father and you wished he just wasn't around? And vice versa. I want to know, because as I delve deeper into this fatherhood series, I'm interested into knowing everybody's point of view. You know, my point of view is just one point of view out of 10 million. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of friends from a lot of different backgrounds, so I've kind of seen every kind of scenario. But for myself, I wish he was there. And like I said, it didn't hit me until I became a grown man. So there's some 12-year-old kid right now who doesn't know his father, who is thinking, I don't need him, I don't know him, never seen him, don't care to. And the 12-year-old is making decisions he shouldn't have to make without a man around. In due time, that 12-year-old will be like me. He'll be a 30-something-year-old grown man looking back on his life and saying to himself, man, I wish somebody was there to give me some game. For me, it only seems like it makes sense, you know, that even if a father, you know, doesn't think he can be a great father, he tries. Far too often as new fathers, if we don't think we could be great fathers, we'd rather not be a father at all. And unfortunately, you know, our children, they shouldn't have to deal with that. Unfortunately, you know, your child's mother shouldn't have to carry the burden because you just felt like, hey, I don't have to because I don't feel like I can be. So chime in. Tell me what y'all think. I know it's not a long show. Just something I had on my mind, something I want to get off my chest. I would love to hear y'all feedback. Like, subscribe on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Please rate the show. I would love a 5-star, but if it's not worthy of a 5-star, give me a 1-star, give me a 2-star, give me a 3-star. Because, you know, I want to become better. I want to make sure that I'm giving the correct information. I want to make sure that my information is understandable and it's relatable. So until next time, y'all go be great. I'm out.